I just saw a wild news headline that says that automakers will have to average 49 miles per gallon in 3 years. Let's talk about it. So this announcement apparently just happened recently, and our current administration just rolled out these emissions rules that require an automaker as a whole for all their vehicles, including trucks and big giant SUVs and everything else, to have an average fuel economy of 49 miles per gallon. It might seem like that's coming at a good time because gas prices are on the rise and they're really crazy, so that kind of seems nice to us, but that's also really quick. For reference, the current average that automakers need to hit is 36 miles per gallon. So they're just adding 13 miles per gallon all of a sudden. It's pretty wild. So this goes into effect for the model year 2026, which typically means that those vehicles will be on showroom floors in 2025. We're talking about, in 2.5 years, a 33% improvement in fuel economy. That is a lot. And of course, the politicians are claiming that this is good for everybody because it means we'll pay less money in gas. Like, we won't have to fill up as much as the end users, that we won't have to depend so much as a country on foreign oil and foreign gas production and all of that, that we'll be less reliant. We can be kind of more about protecting our own interest, and that doing this will help battle climate change and cut carbon emissions by 50% by 2030. Now, you might remember that there were really aggressive fuel economy standards that were put in place during the Obama administration, but after he left, the Trump administration rolled back a bunch of those. So as definitive as this seems right now, there's always a chance that somebody else comes in the next few years and undoes all this. But assuming that doesn't happen, let's just speculate a little bit, you and me here, and try and think about how they would actually do this. Well, so far we've seen a lot of automakers replace big naturally aspirated engines with smaller engines that add turbocharging. Ford has this whole line of EcoBoost engines. Mazda finally buckled down and has a bunch of turbo engines now. A lot of people are doing this. Even hot hatches have gone from 2.5 liter engines to 1.6 liter, 3 cylinders, a la the GR Yaris, that kind of thing. There's always options for alternative fuels. Like, there's some people out there that really want hydrogen to work. I feel like it's a pretty niche thing and it's pretty difficult to deal with because there's not a lot of hydrogen gas stations around. So I don't really expect that to be a thing. And of course, hybrids have been around for a long time, but on average, hybrids aren't doing that well. Like, a hybrid F-150 doesn't get anywhere near 49 miles per gallon. A hybrid Yukon isn't getting there either. So how are they going to bump up this average mileage? Well, despite the mileage being recorded in miles per gallon, it's EVs that are going to really make this happen, because there's an equivalent calculation for EVs that translate miles per gallon to miles per gallon related to an EV. And so it basically converts those two measurements together to give you kind of a general sense of what that miles per gallon would be. Now, a lot of the more fuel efficient, if you will, a lot of the more energy efficient EVs get close to 100 miles per gallon E, which means that if enough of these automakers have those kinds of very efficient EVs out there, those vehicles will be getting 95, 100, 110 miles per gallon per the EPA, and they could still make an F-150, or they could still make a Yukon or some other big giant engined vehicle that doesn't get very good mileage. It's still down there in the mid-20s, and yet they'll meet the requirement. I'm also hoping and kind of expecting the hybrid market to change a little bit, because until now, hybrids have always been an internal combustion engine that gets a little bit of help from a battery. Whenever you're stopped, maybe the internal combustion engine shuts off and you can kind of cruise around the parking lot with just EV mode or something similar to that. But what we're seeing in some other vehicles, like some Polestars, like some very high-end supercars, is the electric part of those vehicles are really robust themselves. I mean, they can be hundreds of horsepower just in the EV mode. Then if you need it, you can jump in with the internal combustion engine. So my prediction and hope is that hybrids begin to transition more from internal combustion heavy, supported by an EV kind of thing, to the opposite. Mostly EV with an internal combustion generator on the back. For example, Audi just ran the Dakar Rally with a very similar setup. They have what in essence is an EV that then has a generator on the back to just give it more juice. Chevy did this with the Bolt. It's been done before, but I expect that to have a bit of a comeback when it comes to needing to meet these really high fuel economy standards. So what does that mean for the future of enthusiast cars? What does that mean for hot hatches and 911s and Mustangs and all that kind of stuff? Are we going to be in 5 or 10 years driving around in Priuses with wide body kits and big wings and goofy stuff like that? Well, it's an interesting proposition because we already know that EVs can be really fast, at least in a straight line or for a limited time on a track. Something like a Model 3 Performance Tesla is really fast. Obviously, some electric hypercars are super fast, something like a Koenigsegg Regera, something like a Tesla Model S Plaid, or the someday, maybe it'll ever happen, Tesla Roadster. Those kind of things are ridiculously fast drag drag vehicles. But a lot of enthusiasts, myself included, aren't really looking for a drag car. We're looking for something that's engaging and interesting day to day. I want something that has some character to it. I just drove a Tesla for the first time. There's not a lot of character there. It's fast from a dig, but that's about it. There's not a lot of soul there. There's not a lot of passion and theater and interest happening. It just gets the job done. So here's where my hope of hybrids comes back in. I could see automakers even taking a smaller engine and pairing that up with hybrid technology to make something that does the best of both worlds. Let's imagine something like a 1-liter turbocharged engine that creates 150 horsepower. Yeah, that's a ton of power. I'm with you, but let's say it's possible. So that thing makes 150 horsepower. It gives us a traditional power band that we can look for and kind of enjoy. And then maybe there's 200 horsepower of EV electric motors in there too. So if you needed to, you could put it in city mode, cruise around, go to dinner. Everything's all silent and quiet. But then on the way home, maybe you want to take the twisty road home. You can switch it into sport mode and that gas engine fires back up and you get the best of both worlds, 350 horsepower. Could be great. We'll see. It's going to be a really interesting change here as we see EV Porsches come out and hybrid 911s and things like that come out, because I'm assuming that's all right around the corner. So let's stay tuned and see what that means for us enthusiasts. Thanks for being here for the first video on this new channel of mine. I really appreciate it. And if you want to see my newest upload, then go ahead and click right here.